What's up, everybody? You're listening to Salah's Corner with the one and only Salah Muhammad. So, how do we engage in conversations with someone we completely disagree with? I know for me, it is incredibly difficult to have just regular conversation with someone who's a deeply devout conservative. Not just because our politics are different, but because the way they navigate conversations, I don't connect with. It's hard sometimes. So on today's episode, I reached out to find someone who is a black conservative to have a conversation where we completely don't agree with each other. So I found one. His name is Tyler, and we sat down and talked about where he gets his politics from. He had a t-shirt that said "The Terrible Conservative." He also refers to himself as a constitutionalist. We dive into what that is. You'll find that throughout this conversation, he and I disagreed a lot. And for the sake of conversation, for the sake of not just bringing you an argument, we didn't dive into a lot of topics or points where we disagree, but it was more of how do we navigate these spaces? How do we find ways to move forward? Because we have to live with each other. We have to work alongside of each other in a lot of cases. How do we navigate all of that when we completely disagree? So I've had a lot of people coming to me asking me where I find the time and the space to make all of these podcasts happen. Well, I have to thank the folks at Rec Philly. They provide me the space, the equipment, and the networking capacity to make this take off. And it's not just for other podcasts. Other creative individuals use this space as well. We're talking musicians, photographers, anyone that considers themselves a creative individual. So if that's you, head over to Rec Philly. Visit them on Instagram. And if you find yourself wanting a membership, tell them Salah sent you. That was a weak ass clap, but that's okay though.
That's a liberal clap, man.
That's because we don't clap. We got more important things to be talking about. You know. So what's going on? What's going on? Tell us. What is a terrible conservative? So
I label myself the terrible conservative just because it was really difficult for people to label me, right? So definitely not Democrat. And so I looked at like Republican and Libertarian. Don't like Republicans either. I'm more Libertarian, I guess, but Libertarians typically believe in like open borders and they're pro-abortion and stuff like that. And to be honest, nobody really knows what a real Libertarian is. If you ever talk to Libertarians, all they don't know what it is. No, they just bitch about like you're not a real Libertarian. Yeah, like, that's all they talk about. Yeah. So I'm just more. I'm a constitutionalist, man. I'm just more conservative.
I mean, you can be a Democrat, but. You know, I know you say you can't be, but you can. Like, it's welcoming.
I could be.
It's very welcoming.
Yeah, I could walk off of this cliff later, but I'm not gonna do that.
So let's tell us educate us a little bit so we can understand what a constitutionalist is.
All right, so a constitutionalist. So I'm part of the Constitution Party. So not Democrat Party, not Republican Party, not Libertarian Party. I'm part of the Constitution Party, and what we hold dear, our core belief is just bringing government to its constitutional limits, right? So that's everything. That stems from like every belief I have is that government needs to be limited constitutionally.
So states' rights, ultimately.
Yeah, states' rights. Yeah, if it's not talked about in the Constitution explicitly for what the federal government can do, then the Constitution says that anything else reverts to the people and the states of where they lie. So it's really the states and the people there.
Where'd you grow up? I'm curious.
All over, man.
What was the?
I was born in Baltimore.
Take me on a journey.
I was born in Baltimore City, man. I moved away when I was like 7 to. I lived in Florida like almost all my life. So.
That's what happened.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
It's the greatest state ever, man. I'm telling you.
So how long were you? How long were you in Florida?
For nearly all my life. Okay. I just got here to outside of Philly in 2014.
Okay. And is that where you feel you've developed your politics?
No. I wasn't in politics at all until this previous election with Trump and Hillary. I didn't care about politics. I got enough that I have to like argue about, right? You know what I mean? With like, anime stuff and just like superhero stuff and stuff like that, music. Yeah, so I got enough that I need to argue about. And I was like, politics is just another thing that I have to argue. So I didn't really care. And then the election came, or the debates came with President Trump and Hillary, and I didn't care. And my uncle was like, look, man, like, don't you think that you're old enough now? Don't you think that, you should have a stance on, how your life is governed, how the people that are making the laws see how to govern you? And I was like, well, I guess that does make sense. So I started diving into it, man. And it's just been like full blast since then.
Did you vote in the 2016 election?
No.
Why?
I wasn't educated enough. I didn't feel educated enough to make that decision.
So when was your first election that you voted in?
Well, my first election will be this coming election.
This coming election is your first one. Interesting. Interesting. Do you have a candidate in mind?
It's still kind of early, man, for me to say. It's probably going to be the Constitution Party candidate, who's Darrell Castle.
Okay.
If Justin Amash runs as like an independent or libertarian or Constitution Partyist, I could possibly entertain voting for him. I like him a lot, but I wouldn't vote for a Democrat or a Republican because I want to get them both out of there.
So you're an interesting mix because you're this, brown skinned fella. From Florida. I mean, your skin's pretty brown to me.
I'm dark white, man.
Oh man, you are opening a can of worms. You are opening a can of worms for me to dive into.
Guest, man. I'm that guest.
So tell me about that then. Let's dive into that. How do you identify? You identify as dark white?
No.
Okay. I'm about to say.
No.
All right. So why a constitutionalist though? I mean, I understand what's in the Constitution, right? And
why constitutionalist compared to what?
Just why constitutionalist? I mean, because I feel as though as a society, no matter whether this is America or anywhere, the idea is progress, right? Progressing in some form or another, right?
Sure, but more government doesn't equate to progress.
It doesn't, but does that mean only limiting yourself to what's only in the Constitution that was written?
Well, the Constitution doesn't
ago?
actually limit citizens. It doesn't limit individuals. It only limits government. So as long as government is still limited, then yes.
But when you are limiting the range of conversation to only what's written something a couple of centuries ago, isn't that limiting the progress?
No.
How so?
Well, I guess you'd have to take it case by case. I'd have to know exactly what you mean by progressing what. Like, what do you progressing what? Just specifically?
Progressing civil liberties, progressing.
Like what?
Let's talk about what was one of our issues we talked about.
Abortion.
Let's
gun
dive.
rights,
Let's dive into abortion.
Okay.
Because
it's murder. Spoiler alert. It's murder.
It's respectfully disagree, but it wasn't something that was originally in the Constitution, right?
No.
So does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's not actually in the Constitution.
Right. So then, how do we govern that area?
So that would be left to the states, right? So the federal government. So there are Republicans and whatever. And right now they're challenging like Roe v. Wade, which I completely support. But the thing is, it's not to make abortion illegal federally. I wouldn't support that at all, right? There is no federal. There is no constitutionally or constitutional law that even makes like murder illegal federally, right? It's states. So I believe murder should be illegal, right? But it's the state's job to determine like what the penalties will be for such crime, right? So abortion, me believing that it is murder, I don't believe federally they should have any power at all. So definitely overturn Roe v. Wade, and then it's just reverted to the states. So like if Alabama, for instance, says that, look, we definitely believe that abortion is murder here, and if you commit said murder, you will get whatever punishment we deem necessary, then that is totally up to them. If another state says that, you know what, we don't think that abortion is murder, which I would disagree with, but if they don't think that abortion is murder, and then abortion is fine here, then it's states' rights. It's not federal.
So operating on that premise that murder is defined by the states, which it's not. Murder is also defined on the federal level as well. Right, that's the purpose of the FBI. If I commit murder across multiple states, the FBI.
Constitutionalists don't really believe in the FBI.
How do you not believe in the FBI? Does it have to? Do you have to believe in it to be? Certain
constitutionalists may, but if you bring yourself to a constitutionally limited government, any subsection that they come up with, the FBI, the Homeland Security, the CIA, all of these things that are federal, right? It's just more power that is given by the federal government that they don't have to begin with. They don't have this power. right?
Do they not have this power?
Power is an illusion. First of all, power is just an illusion, right? Power is what I give you, or you give whoever as an individual. Constitutionally limited. So for people who don't understand the Constitution, people are like, oh, well, the Constitution's so old. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Supreme law, right? So there is nothing above the Constitution. Even if you go to the Supreme Court, right? If somebody argues something in the Supreme Court, sometimes I'll agree with what they say. Sometimes I won't agree with what they say. But even the people of the Supreme Court, this is totally going to get me killeried later. It's totally going to get me suicided. But even if they say something, if it's unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional.
That was a I won't say it was all over the place, but it was.
What part do you disagree with?
Well, I mean, on multiple levels, right? When we talk about what gives the federal government power, what our quote unquote belief in these government institutions like the FBI, CIA, NSA, all of these government agencies, but then who gives them power? The people give them the power.
Right. We give them the power.
Right. But it's not a matter of if I believe they have power, right? Like it's not. I don't. What puts them in place isn't it's not a religious thing. It's an institutional thing. So it doesn't require my belief for it to be true.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. My point is that power, especially federal power, all of this power, it's not real. It's not tangible. What I mean is that the power is only exactly what you said. It's only the power that we really allow them to believe that they have.
Agree.
But you just happen to believe that they should hold more power than I believe. Right?
And I guess in its truest form, yes. Okay.
Why do you believe that?
It depends on what specific practices are we talking about. So, okay. and I think, and this is kind of where the basis I want to kind of dive into is when you talk about being a constitutionalist, essentially you expect the state of Pennsylvania to hold more power than the federal government, at least within the state of Pennsylvania. Yep. But should there not be some type of, I guess, similarities? As a nation, right? We're a nation of 50 states. And should we not have some type of semblance of unity when it comes to laws across borders? How does that happen?
It's the Constitution.
But how is it enforced and how is it implied if you start having all of these limitations on federal government?
All right, so let's talk about something like specific. So like as of right now, Virginia is under fire right now for they want to take away just pretty much all guns, just all guns. I did a podcast on it recently, right? So they want to take away just pretty much all guns, right? Which is completely unconstitutional. Now, the procedure for something, say that, let's even dive into something more radical. Let's say slavery, right? Say that the state of Pennsylvania wanted to impose or implement slavery, right? Just straight slavery, which we obviously disagree on.
Agree.
Right, okay. So no slavery. Okay. Now, slavery is defined in the Constitution. Right? You can't be slaves, right? Okay. So if Pennsylvania decided to impose slavery, the procedure is that the state has to be brought to trial, right, to a federal court, and then after that they determine, well, they would just overturn it. They'd be like, no, this is unconstitutional. You can't impose slavery, right? So then they'd be like, oh, okay, we can't impose slavery, and that's it. So if a state happened to do something that was unconstitutional, then honestly, the Trump administration could do it. The Trump administration could just say, look, that is not constitutional. Same with gun laws. Like, that is not constitutional. We are going to sue you, bring you to federal court, and then we're just going to overturn it. That's the way that it's supposed to go. But
do you see where the problem lies when you get into the details of things, such as abortion, for example? There's a number of states, especially in the South, that, effectively outlaw abortion because of, having certain practices like you got to read basically a Miranda rights of things to a woman from a doctor that doesn't necessarily apply before they can even get an abortion, right? Or you got to be an admitted doctor at a hospital in order to even just be receive. Like some of those as a country.
Yeah.
Do you not see, or do you not agree with the fact that there should be some, I guess, similarities in the rights of an individual, whether you are in Arkansas, whether you're in Texas or Pennsylvania? Should that not be similar as far as just your rights as an individual, no matter what state you live in, as long as you're a citizen of America?
Sure, absolutely. Like I just said, like those your rights are the founding fathers described them as inalienable, right? Mm-hmm. They're given to you by God, right? Whether you believe in God or not, they did. So they're saying that there are just rights that every individual is born with, right? Government cannot say that you can or cannot do this, right? So there are certain things that you are just born with, but I don't believe abortion is one of those rights that you're born with. I don't believe abortion is a right. Again, I think murder is wrong, and I would always combat abortion.
Let's talk about your shirt for a second. Let's switch gears a little bit.
What, you want to talk about marijuana?
So, and kind of what I was going, the direction that I was going into prior. You are, like I said, the stereotype of you as this young brown man, is as a conservative, gun-toting, weed smoking, dude, and it's just like, where the fuck did you come from?
It's like a conundrum.
It is. It's like who poured too many seasonings into the pot and got you?
No, man. No, this is all truth, brother. So especially constitutionalists, right? So the Constitution Party is very much religious. I am not. I'm an agnostic. I don't really know if God is real or not real, but my party is very religious, mainly because it's made up of a bunch of boomers and they're old fashioned, right? They're traditional conservatives, which is fine, but so they don't really believe in like marijuana, for instance, but they understand that the federal government has no power given to them that says that they can say that weed is illegal, heroin is illegal, crack is illegal, all of these things, right? People are individuals. So if you are harming yourself and not harming other people, then that's not a crime. It's a victimless crime. You're the only person who is harming yourself, right? It's crazy. Just think about it, right? So if I'm smoking weed, allegedly. So if I'm smoking weed,
that's not, we smoke weed. It's okay.
Allegedly. So if I'm doing that, right, it's like the federal government will bust down your door and be like, no, you need to be put in prison for the crimes that you committed against yourself. Like it's insane. It doesn't even make sense.
But when it comes to guns, for everybody who's not who can't see, you have a shirt that says #TerribleConservative. It's basically the American flag, but instead of stars, there's a marijuana plant, and except for stripes, there's bullets. Yeah. What's your stance on guns? Which clearly means bullets for all.
The rights for all.
Or right.
The right to bear arms, man. So, man, everyone has that right. Every citizen has that right to bear arms. So, anything, and this is where people think it's radical just because they've been indoctrinated into this other way of life, is everything that you see that the military has, right? Citizens also have the right constitutionally to have those same weapons. And so people even bring up things like, well, what about missiles and what about nuclear weapons? Sure. I don't think that anybody should have a nuclear weapon. Like any person, any government, nobody should have a nuclear weapon. But the problem is that we have them now, and we're not going backwards, right? They're only getting bigger weapons, bigger and more powerful weapons, right? So if you have the federal government is the only person that has these weapons, then they can do things like they did back. I mean, you're from Philly, right? Mm-hmm. They'll do things like they did back in 1980. It's like 1985, I think. It was mid 1980s, where they had a predominantly black neighborhood. They were trying to govern themselves.
Talking about the Osage bombing. Here
and the move. It was against the move.
The move movement.
Exactly.
The mayor authorized a bomb to be dropped on.
Two bombs,
Osage
actually.
Street, and it went into this community who was, they had a lot of run-ins with the police, and they ended up in this huge standoff and helicopter. It was, the footage is out there. A lot of people haven't heard about it, and just because it's just so far removed from like history in our minds, but you can literally see the helicopter and then the bombs drop on this.
They dropped. They killed 11 people. I think 5 of them were children. And it's crazy. And the mayor sanctioned this. Mayor and the governor, both Democrats, by the way. Let's not leave that out, right? The Democratic Party, man, has been against black folks from like the beginning. And what I try and do is I try and educate people, and just enough not to. I want your opinion. I want your mind to be changed, but I more so want you to just make that decision on your own if given all of the facts, because a lot of people are just ignorant to the facts, right? They just don't know. So I'll be like, okay, so let me give you this information. Now, what do you think? Do you think that the Democrats are really still for minorities? Probably not.
So you're going back to the gun issue. You're not necessarily an advocate for everybody should be, just like you riding around in your car, you should be riding around in tanks. You're more of an advocate of if the government have it, so should the people.
The right to the people, yeah, because right. I want to make sure that I don't confuse this for some people who would be listening to this. I don't believe that all people should have weapons. I don't believe my neighbor should have a nuclear weapon, right? I don't believe my neighbor should have a tank, right? There are some people that I believe should not have weapons of any kind, but it's not the government's responsibility, nor do they have the power to say that you can't have it, right? Same thing with like red flag laws and things like that. If people actually look at them, here's the big thing, Salah. So the biggest thing, man, is that especially black people specifically should be so anti-democrat. Like it's insane to me that they support things like gun control. I mean, look at it this way. So I'll ask you a question. So do you believe that police are against minorities?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that they violate specifically black people's rights?
Absolutely.
Daily.
Absolutely.
Right, daily. Okay, so then how does it make sense? Explain to me how it makes sense that you would then say, yeah, so the weapons that we need to combat these people, it should only be put in the hands of the same government, right? The same government that is oppressing them, black people, in the first place.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but that's my opinion. I would say that we should get rid of the police force in its entirety.
What, have like a privatized police?
We should...
Say it, and we're going to be best friends right now.
No, I do not. I do not agree with that at all. I think
How do you get rid of so you just want no type of authority?
I think the authority is within the community.
Because that's like anarchism. That's what that is.
I disagree. I think that people believe that people need to be police, right? Like everybody needs to be quote unquote watched. Everybody needs to make sure that they're doing something good. And that goes with the belief that people are inherently bad, that people will inherently do something wrong and unjust. And you always need a watchdog. And that's not necessarily the case. The problem is we don't have any sense of community. We don't have any sense of accountability. We don't have any sense of you stole my, I use this example. Let's say you're my cousin, and you smoke too much marijuana, and you got, I'm gonna throw all the stereotypes.
Sounds legit now.
The marijuana is now the gateway drug though, because the marijuana is your gateway drug, and you on pills, and you're crazy dude now. You stole my car, right? In our system today, the first thing I'd do is call the police, right?
You shouldn't.
I shouldn't, but in reality, that's what takes place.
Yeah.
What are the chances I'm getting that car back?
Probably slim to none.
Exactly. Except, what if I called your mom? Right? What are the chances of me? What if I called your aunt or my aunt? What if I called a family member?
I'd say the better thing is that you just come after me for your property.
But if I can't get a hold of you, because clearly I can't, because you stole my car. What's the best recourse that I have to be able to get in touch with you?
I completely agree with.
And but that's not how our system works. Our system works is somebody stole my bike, somebody slashed my tires, somebody did something to me, and I'm going to go to the police. Police, one, ain't even going to take you seriously. They're going to write down a report. It's going to get filed away somewhere, and it's going to get forgotten about. And that's going to be and then now I have this, and then when it's a stranger, now I don't like you or your type of person because they're always doing something to me. And there's no sense of community.
It sounds like we agree.
In a sense, we agree.
Right.
But so the question I have for you would be then is, instead of being an advocate for everybody should have what the government has, shouldn't it be to
everyone should have the right to have
everyone should have the right to have what the government has? Shouldn't the argument then be maybe the government should have like less guns? Maybe the government should have less.
There should just be less government. If there is less government, then there would then in turn be less guns.
But let's focus on. But you got to do it small, right? Like you can't just you know. Does that work to just say less government and then it works, or do you go issue by issue and start focusing on, well, what are some of the issues that what areas that we need less government? As from a tactics perspective.
Tactically, so here's the big problem when we talk about like being strategic and all of these things, which is good. It's good to be strategic. It's good to have good tactics. But here's something that I don't want to happen while having that in sight. I don't want to lose the sight of government is wrong. Government is too powerful as it is right now. So these are the same type of thinking. It tends to breed things like people who still want to vote for like Republicans. So like I go against Republicans probably more than I go against Democrats, right? Because they're supposed to believe like the things that I believe like for the Constitution, but they're willing to sacrifice these things because they'll say very anti-democratic things. They'll say things like, look, if we vote in, if we put a Democrat in office and it's socialism and it's all this stuff, which may or may not, probably not, but they're so anti-liberal and so anti-leftist and anti-democrat that they're willing to put these same people in office while still not even understanding that the Republican Party is the worst for gun control. The Republican Party has imposed more federal gun control than the Democrats, almost twice as much, right? So they think that let's be strategic. Let's change the Republican Party. We're going to make a change. We're really going to change it. We're going to bring this guy in and everything's going to change. It's not like that. Those two systems are completely corrupted our system, America, and they need to be eliminated and replaced, right? We need third party. I'm a huge third party advocate. Even if it was somebody like the Green Party, which I don't agree with most of their stuff. It's a liberal party, but even just showing that there are more options than just Democrats and Republicans. So yes, you should be strategic and you should be tactful when addressing just about any issue, but don't lose sight of the actual goal, and don't eliminate your morality and what's right for what's easy. Right? I'm a big advocate for not picking the lesser of two evils. We need to do the things that are just right.
What would you say is the biggest problem with our political system?
The two-party system. That's the biggest. That's the biggest problem. The biggest problem is not only just the two-party system, but it's also that just the miseducation, man. The mainstream media, especially, because most people watch, especially on the liberal side, they listen to mainstream media. Democrats themselves own the media space, right? It's irrefutable, right? So they own the MSNBCs and the CNNs, and they own now Facebook and BuzzFeed, and you have the Young Turks, and you have they have lawsuits against YouTube and Facebook right now. YouTube and Facebook right now because they are targeting like conservative voices. So I think having more voices that are willing to say things that you don't agree with, kind of like how we're doing right now, and being open to the possibility of not knowing everything that you think you do.
I will respectfully disagree with a lot of that, but I think the point of doing this is to show people that like this is needed a little bit more, and to be able to get into the room and talk about the things you disagree with and see where we come from and start a dialogue, because I would say that that's one of the things that is missing in how we engage in politics. I agree with you. The two-party system is very broken, but I think the way forward to see what else is out there is to be able to get into a room with people you disagree with and just and hash it out and talk about it. So
agreed.
The Terrible Conservative. We're gonna wrap this up. Can you tell us where we can find the Terrible Conservative? Sure,
man. You can find me just about on anything. On Facebook is where I am mostly active. I know I'm an old soul because I'm still on Facebook, but it's at Tyler Bluntman. So Tyler Bluntman. So you can find me there. You can find me on Instagram at Tyler Bluntman, and also on YouTube. I'm building that as well at Tyler Bluntman.
I appreciate you, Tyler. We'll have to have you come back, and we can. I saw you do a debate with a few people, and maybe we'll have to
Bring
pick
somebody
pick a topic, and maybe you and I can go back and forth.
Hey, bring them all up, man. Bring them. If you need backup, I'm okay with that.
I don't consider myself a constitutionalist. I can understand your arc and thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Tactically speaking, I think I would do things differently, but again, respectfully disagree.
Hey, well, I appreciate you bringing me on the show, brother.
I appreciate you. Thank you, Tyler. Okay, once again, I want to thank Tyler for stopping by on the podcast today. You can follow his YouTube channel at Tyler Bluntman, also on Instagram as well. And again, if you have someone you work alongside of who you completely disagree with, their politics just do not line up with yours, remember that we all have to live in these spaces. So it's important that we work to find common ground and figure out how we can engage in conversation that progresses the conversation. We don't always have to agree. The best way to move forward is when we don't agree, actually. And we can't do that if we are screaming and shouting at each other. So I hope this is the beginning of a conversation that we can continue to have where we completely disagree with each other, but we can have conversations around policy and around politics that progresses our way of thinking. Salah's Corner is recorded out of Rec Philly. It is a space for creative individuals, features producer extraordinaire Bree Wilson, and has music produced by Delgado. For more of my work, please visit salahscorner.com. And until next time, peace, y'all.